What's up everyone, this is Pags here at MEI Studio, and this week we got a bench tip video for you, and we're going to be refoaming this Sennheiser e609. First thing that we got to do is get the retaining clip out of here. There are two little holes in the clip there, and you can either use a really pointy screwdriver, or if you have the proper tool for it, which is a ring clip plier or ring clip tool, I don't know what it's called. Anyway, you squeeze those two little holes and the ring pops out. And that's step one. And next we got to get into the mic. There are two screws underneath the grill. And we're just going to remove those two screws. Trying to fast forward through the boring bits here. And there's nothing else holding the head onto the stem there, so we got these wires here, and we can see that the black gunk is actually leaking out of this hole, and it's covered on the wires as well, and it's in the stem. So lovely and disgusting. Next thing we got to do is get inside the grill here, and this is like the big secret thing to do. I haven't found any place on the web that shows you how to do this, but just get the needle nose pliers into the grill a little bit, really close to the surround, and gently pry up, and the grill will just pop right off. And I went around a little bit, do it so make sure that it was kind of out, and then poof, it's done. Now there's a little bit of hot glue that is kind of around that whole thing there that you can either reuse later by heating it up when you stick it back together, or take it all off and put some new glue in there. But right now we're going to get rid of this cruddy foam that is just deteriorating and turning into a nasty, sticky substance. This stuff is really gross, and it is the same stuff that's in the RE20 and the PL10. And next thing I'm going to do here before we try to clean up anything is I'm going to remove the capsule from the wires. When the capsule's upright, the red wire's on the left, white wire's on the right. And you barely have to touch it with the soldering iron, and it just pops right off. So the capsule is now free. Done with the iron for a minute here. Now, it's important to note that there are two wires connected to the grills of this mic. There's a black wire that connects to the black part of the grill, and then there's another black wire that's connected between the two, that go between the two halves of the grill. I'm just going to take one of those off there so we can free the grill completely, and get the other one off there too. Again, not much holding it on, you just got to touch it and it comes right out. And again, this black stuff is just all over the place. The foam is just disgusting. And now we're going to try and put our Goo Gone stuff that I like to use for sticky stuff around the capsule. We're going to be very careful not to get the chemical onto the diaphragm area, even though there is a cover over the diaphragm there. So just going to get it all around on the plastic, try to get all that sticky stuff off of the plastic, and just clean it up as best as we can. And now the Goo Gone stuff you have to let sit for a little while. So while I'm letting that set in, I'm going to try and vacuum up all of this stuff, because it just gets everywhere and it crumbles into really fine particles and creates dust, and if it gets on anything, it kind of just sticks to it. Very unpleasant. And we can see that there's still stuff stuck in the grate there. We're going to give those a alcohol bath in a little bit, but that'll have to wait for right now. I'm going to get back to the capsule before this thing dries and try and wipe off all of that excess stuff from the plastic. And try to get rid of as much as you possibly can, because I don't know if the old stuff will affect the new foam in any way. no idea, and I don't want to find out. But try to use clean Q-tips as you're cleaning it off, otherwise you just wind up spreading that stuff around. And then finally, you want to use like a twisting motion to get anything off of that little cover that's over the diaphragm. And you don't want to push too hard, but, you know, just try to get in there and get as much of that stuff off of there as possible. Now that white cover is just like a piece of very cheap cloth or some kind of cottony fiber stuff. And if you just roll the Q-tip over it, the black gunk tends to stick to the Q-tip more than it sticks to the cover there, so it's pretty easy to get off. So get that cleaned out. I'm just going to wipe it down, make sure I get all the goo gone off that was on there. And you don't want to push on that too hard. Again, be very careful as you're cleaning it. It is all plastic, unfortunately, unlike the previous capsule that they had in the 409, which was metal. And now we got to deal with the stem here of the mic. And again, using some of the Goo Gone, just try to get it off the wires. That stuff will eat through the insulation on the wires. And I'm going to try and free up the XLR connector so we can get the wires and the connector out, because that gunk is all inside of there and it won't push through the back. Kind of have to coax it out. And there we go. And we can see that, yeah, there's a lot of junk inside there. So that's next to get cleaned up. And this has got to be so much fun to watch. Let's speed this up a little bit here. There we go. What did you do today? I watched a guy clean crud out of a microphone. Yeah. So we got that pretty clean. Clean enough for now, at least. And on to the next thing, which is to give the covers an alcohol bath, which I did off camera. Sorry, I forgot to record it. But basically just swished them around in an alcohol bath and got the stuff off. Now, these are all the parts that we have for the microphone, and we just need a foam surround to suspend the capsule in. So I got my handy dandy laser and some foam, and I traced out the shape of the capsule and the shape of the basket, and we're left with a really nice cutout surround. So now we have to put the microphone back together, and it's very important that you put it back together in the order it came apart. So the XLR's got to go in first, and then get that retaining clip back in there. Thing's a pain in the butt, but jam it back in there. Now, if there's not a lot of crud that's inside the stem, you don't have to take that off. You can just try and clean it out as best as possible. But as I said, it does tend to eat away at the wires, and you don't want to let that stuff kind of sit. I took a little piece of the hole that we cut out of the center for the new surround and shoved it into the shaft to kind of dampen that a little bit. Next, we have to run the wires through the grill, and we're going to connect those black wires back on. Make sure the ground wires are connected there. Kind of makes like a little Faraday cage around the capsule. Pretty cool concept, actually. Okay, and then the remaining wires have to get fed through the new surround into the center where the diaphragm is going to go. And we get that in there, and now we just have to solder the diaphragm back on. White and the red wires. Once they're in, that is pretty much it. We're done. So I pushed the diaphragm into the surround so it kind of sits in there a little bit. I made a little plug just like the original had. And I just pushed the grills back together and they kind of stuck. They can be pried apart by hand, but they won't just fall off. If I do find out that they get a little loose there, I'll put some new glue in. But just got to screw it back together and we're pretty much done. Let's take a listen to it.